So then you obviously, let's start talking about IEM Sydney, right? This is the first big event that you play with that roster. And I don't want to touch on like any of the group stage results or anything like that because it's not that big of a deal. But as far as your career is concerned and as far as this Grayhound roster is concerned, one of the massive things to come out of that event was the victory over SK, which knocked SK out of the tournament. So it really seems like when you as an individual, as a player are at these kind of IEM events, you're like a bit of a career ruiner, because we'll go to like the 2019 results as well sometime further down this discussion. But every single time you've played at IEM Sydney, you've had this big result, which has been like whoa, like they kind of just did that, right? So SK was already struggling at that point. It was probably fair to say. But regardless of that fact, it's still a massive, massive result. And one of the first times, I think, in memory that an Australian-based team had actually beat an international team in a best of three. So that was kind of a big deal for us as like viewers and pundits. But what about for you as an individual and for the team?
I think it was pretty like, again, we kind of went in knowing that we can, like, we're always confident going into these games. Like, we can always upset and we can always make these, like, make the magic happen. But I think it was just, pretty surreal. The fact that they were the reigning champs from the year before, and then we knocked them out, like, in almost, I think they were like second last place or something like that. Or,
it was pretty much, I think it was last place actually.
Yeah, it must have been
because it was the first round of the lower bracket, and like it was them and one of the other teams that wasn't expected to do much that came in last.
Yeah, weird.
Legacy, Boot, Dreamscape, Chiefs, and SK were the teams that were 13th to 16th. So like,
I mean,
that's where you kind of put them.
Yeah, it feels bad, man. Yeah, I feel like we kind of, I don't know, we just went into the game like we didn't really do like a whole lot of anti-stratting or anything like that. We were kind of just like, we know that our fundamentals are good, and that's something that we always, like, I keep harping on about it, but that's something we always focused on and was always like the main reason this team, I think, has always been solid. And that's still stuff that we work on today, is like having the fundamentals and having an idea of how everyone as a team is going to play on the map is how you beat these teams, because you're like a whole unit, and like if something happens here, then something happens on the other side of the map to react, or like a rotation happens, or utility, anything like that, right? That's all stuff that it doesn't, like, it's super hard to have that just ingrained, like, in your, like, just in the play style that you have as a team. And it's what we've always focused on. And it's how these teams, they kind of come in and they expect that you're not going to be able to have, like SK comes in, they go, these guys are not, like, who even are these guys? They're not going to know how to play the fundamentals, basically. That's how I assume they come into it, or that's how it feels like they come into it. And then we kind of just surprise them that we know how to hold a site, we know how to rotate, and we know how to use utility. And then they kind of get a little bit, they're on the back foot suddenly, and we can like play into that a lot. Like, I don't know, it definitely is a lot easier to play these top teams when there's no pressure on us and all the pressure's on them, because we basically are just making decisions that it just helps you make decisions that are right. But in the moment, it's sometimes hard to like just commit if you are worried that, if you're like, oh, but if I do this, we could lose a round, and then you're expecting to win the rounds and stuff like that, then you're more scared to do plays like that. Well, that's how I feel, at least. And against these guys, it's just like full confidence. If you think a play, or if you think a rotation, or you think utility usage is good, then you just do it, and you just like, you trust it, basically.
Right.
And I think that's what helps us get over the line against all these, like, all the times we've upset teams and stuff like that. It's just, we're just confident in our own game, and confident in all that kind of stuff. And there's no, second questions about it.
And then after you play against SK, you go into this lower bracket game against FaZe. So again, it's another one of those big matches where everyone's thinking, hey, you know what? Grayhound, they've beaten SK. What if they can beat FaZe? And I was actually I think I actually ended up casting both of these games. So I do remember them quite vividly, right?
Yeah.
It's quite difficult for an Australian caster to watch an Australian team losing at an event where they could potentially play on stage against an Australian audience. I don't want to like rub it in too much or anything like that, but
yeah.
You go into this game against FaZe, and obviously the storyline that we're setting as Aussie casters is like, they can actually do this. These guys are sick. And you actually do end up winning map number 1, 16-14 on Mirage.
Was it Mirage?
Yeah,
Mirage.
and we were like, fuck yeah, this is happening, right?
Yeah. Now Mirage back then was like our go-to map, like because Mirage at the moment is like really, it's kind of the same as it was back then. Is it's just super old. Like everyone knows how to do everything on Mirage, right? Like there's no creativity on Mirage because everything's been done, and that kind of plays into our hand against teams like FaZe and like SK because we're just as experienced as those players on these maps. Like there's nothing they have. Sorry, there's no strats or anything that they have that we haven't seen. There's no rotations that we don't know how to do. So like all this kind of stuff, it just helps us. It basically just levels the playing field. Like we're basically just a team. Like we're just equal teams on this map, and that's why 16-14 is like not really a surprise. Like it was anyone's game on the day, but that's against a team who theoretically, should have more experience than us and should have, I guess strategically like an advantage against us. They just don't have it because it's so like on Mirage, it's so easy for teams to be equal to each other, I feel like.
Yeah, so you do end up winning that map, and then you go into Cache, you drop the map of Cache, you go on to Dust 2, and this is what I want to talk about a little bit more so, because I can remember the moment, and I don't know if you can remember the moment or if you agree on the moment, where like I knew you guys had lost that map, and it was round 21. I've gone back and watched it just in the lead up to prep for this. I went back and watched round 21, and this is the round where you guys have guns, but FaZe is on an eco. They're on T side, right? Do you remember this round? Nico runs out.
Does he have a scout?
He has a scout, and he just bangs Gratisfaction out of the server. Grats at car with an AWP. Nico fucking just yeets out of short and just
short,
headshots him. And then you come rolling in from long, and it's Rain who comes around the corner with a P250, double binks you in the head, and I'm like, they've lost this game. Was that the same for you? Like, did you feel in that server like, okay, we've lost the game now?
I just remember like, or after round, Sean was like, can't remember what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, "Oh, you just did me good there," or something like that. Like he just got destroyed, like at short or car or whatever.
It was car. He was sitting in car.
I don't know. Sometimes like everything I was saying about fundamentals and stuff like that. Like sometimes you just have a player like Nico and he just goes out and he wins a round, and you're like, okay, well, that was that round. like there's no analysis you can do in that round to be like, how do we play it wrong or how do we play it better? Like we were just playing scared, and they just like he just destroyed Sean, and like from there it's like, I don't know. Once they already have ace out on Dust 2, you're kind of just screwed. So yeah.
But did you guys still sort of have a feeling like, okay, we can still win this map, or was it sort of slipping away, very similar to what we were talking about in that Optic game from 2017?
It was slipping away. Yeah. I was trying to think of a way to put it that wasn't the exact same as what you said, but yeah, we were like, yeah. It feels like when you lose an eco like that and it's such a high pressure situation, because we were super confident that the Cloud9 order game, the winner of that, we would verse, I think, and then that would be the stage game.
Correct.
Or that would be the
game that put you through to the stage.
Exactly.
If you won that.
And we were confident. I think at halftime we knew that Order had won a map and C9 had won a map, or not at halftime, but between the games.
Yep.
Like before us too. So I think we were like, oh, if we win this game, then that's going to be the easy.
Yeah.
That'll be the easy one. Or like, not saying that we wouldn't have a hard time beating Order or Cloud9, but it would have been easier than the FaZe and SK games. Like we've done the hard work, and then we just have one more, and it'll be so basically this Dust 2 was like where all the pressure was, I think, in our heads, because we were like, this is the game now. And it's hard when you start losing grip of a game like that not to just try and cling on like as hard as you can, and that kind of makes people that's where discipline comes into the equation. And it's like it's the hardest thing to keep playing what you know is the right way to play when it's losing, like when Nico's coming up short and insta headshotting someone, because you're like, okay, this isn't working, we need to change something, we need to be more like, we need to just be aggressive individually or something like that. And that's where you kind of just like, you're clinging on and you just let go.
Yeah, I can remember actually now that you've sort of mentioned that this was one of the storylines that we were kind of looking at, is that if Grayhound can beat FaZe, like, not that they're assured a place on the stage, but there's a really good chance that we actually end up with two Australian teams on the stage, because Renegades at that time had already qualified. They just had to beat Tyloo, I think, in the upper bracket final to get an even better seeding or something like that. And then Order like almost beats Cloud9 as well. So you have Order nearly beating Cloud9, and you have Grayhound nearly beating FaZe, and we're like, holy fuck, this is the dream. And then you both lose, and it's just like, fuck's sake, like, not again. That was so close.
The Order game was so... Oh, it was actually... Because after we lost to FaZe in that Dust 2 game, we were just like, all right, whatever. Like, good performance. We were like very happy with our performance.
Yeah, like you guys did well overall.
Yeah, and then we were in the viewing room watching the Order Cloud9 game because, like, damn, they were like 15-10 up or something. We were like, all right, surely. And then Rush had like some insane clutch.
I think it was a 1-on-5. I think it was a 1-on-5.
No, sure
memory.
No, and then he had like another 1-on-2 in the next round or something like that, and in overtime, and it was tears, man. I feel like those guys were a lot closer to stage than we probably were.
It was a 1-on-4 actually. Now that I've gone and looked it up, but it was with an AWP, and like the storyline there was he'd had like 1 kill or no kills at all in his professional career with an AWP, and he's just picked up this AWP and basically 1v4'd Order to put Cloud9, I think, through to the overtime. I think that was the round that put them to the overtime. Like, that game was on a silver platter for Order, and they lost it.
Speaking to Simon about it, because obviously got to make fun of him and Jordan about it. But yeah, whenever we laughed about it, it was just like comms were like hectic or something, and they were just like so hyped, and like they kind of already had in their heads that they'd won the round.
Yeah.
Kind of like they're just like really hyped and everyone's yelling and stuff, and then like I don't know, some people are yelling, and then they just lost.
Rip.
Very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I think they were so close. Oh.
Same with you guys, but like overall, again, another IEM Sydney where I'd say everyone's pretty happy with the performances by Aussie teams. I mean, I guess Legacy got knocked out pretty early, but I think they were playing with a sub, and they were one of the weaker teams in the region at the time anyway.
They weren't meant to be there, right? They only were there Starvey couldn't get visas?
Yeah, something like that. So like that was kind of like whatever, but if our boys Grayhound and if our boys Order did well and Renegades have made the stage, we're pretty happy with that. So, another IEM in the books for Malta.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling good?
Yeah. Nah.
And then...
just want to make stage, man.
Well, one day, I suppose.
One day.
Okay, and then this is where things go a little bit more wrong, right? You go over to Dallas, right? And it seems like, now that I've been doing a bit of research, you guys have like this curse about ESL Pro Leagues. Because you go to Dallas and you've just had this sick performance at IEM Sydney. Everyone's like, Greyhound's fucking awesome. They're going to be able to perform pretty well. And then you lose to MVP, which is like, okay, dude, how are you losing to MVP at this point? And then you face FaZe again, and I think you end up getting 2-0'd by FaZe, and it's like not really that close.
No, didn't we? Dallas. We lost to Renegades. And yeah. Definitely. Wait, ESL Pro League, Dallas? Yeah. No, we lost to. We might have lost MVP. We definitely lost to Renegades that event, because I remember going into it being like, beaten him before, we'll do it again. Didn't have Josh this time, so no one to carry me. But we definitely, unless I'm thinking of
either way, like you go into that event and you pretty much get knocked out in the group. Not in the group, but like you go into the lower bracket, you don't really do too much. You get knocked out straight away, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, sad. How did that happen?"
I think so. I don't know. You slowly learn things as kind of a team. And I think what we kind of learn a lot of behind the scenes stuff over the years, and we've kind of come to a good point now where we're good in terms of preparation for events. But the preparation doesn't just include like in-game stuff and being on point as a team tactically and everything, but all the behind the scenes stuff like for that event, I think we flew in and then we had media day and then we played the tournament the day after. So we were all like everyone, me and Erk were waking up at 3 a.m. playing DM and stuff because we just couldn't sleep.
I can sort of have a bit of input here because I was at that event as well.
That too, yeah.
Right, and I was jet lagged as fuck. If you remember, like you basically never would have seen me outside of my hotel room except when I was casting. Because I remember
we had lunch or something and you were like, all right, I'm going to bed.
I'm going to bed. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I was like, I'm fucked. Like I've got to go to bed. I would be waking up at like 3 a.m. Every time I would go to breakfast, it would be 6 a.m., which was when breakfast opened, and me and Erkast would be there, like just us. And everyone else would have come in at like 7 o'clock or whatever and just been like, why the fuck are these guys here? But I was so jet lagged. And I imagine it was like the same for you guys, right?
Yeah, and I remember I was, me and Erk were getting up. I think we were sharing we were sharing a room that event because we used to be roomies. And me and him were waking up at like 3 or 4 a.m. and then just like going to the prac room and just playing CS until 6 a.m. when we could get breakfast. And that's like, obviously that's nowadays what we try and do is have a boot camp before. So we always have that, like, so we go and then we try and have like 10 days or something for a boot camp for an event, because obviously just preparation wise it helps us a lot, but it also means you get like it can take like more than a week to get used to jet lag.
1 hour for every 1 day for every hour of time difference, and I think
Right.
North America it's like 15 or 14 hours from Sydney.
Something
So
stupid.
you would need almost like 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we're pretty good at, I think within a week we're all pretty on par. We might be having like some early bedtimes, like going to bed at like 11 when we usually go to bed at like 3 a.m. or something, but we're pretty good at like getting ourselves in the rhythm. But it does take, like, you can't do it over a couple days. And that's what we kind of like, every overseas trip I've ever done before, this last like year and a half maybe, always just done it 2 days later you're playing and you have to try to fix your sleep schedule that quickly, and it just doesn't, like, you're never well rested. You're never on your game because you're just so cooked. And that's why the IEM Sydneys were always such a advantage for us as well, was because these European teams are never, like, they're not coming here to boot camp, because why would you boot camp in Oz? And so they're not accustomed to they're getting bad sleep as well. And that was always a factor that we thought about of them as well. We're like, well, these guys are just like, they must be so cooked, because we're always cooked when we go to Europe. But regardless, it's something you learn, like, and it's something orgs need to be really good with as well. Like, you need to have an org who's willing to understand that you need that time over there, you need that boot camp over there, because otherwise you're just not going to be able to perform, because you just, like, you're getting like 6 hours of sleep a night and it's just at the wrong time. So bad.
So anyway, that event sort of goes by the wayside.
Yeah.
Whatever, the expectations aren't too high. It's not an Australian event, so no one really cares. And it was also on Facebook, so probably no one even watched it. Which
was
is
it?
Yeah, that was, I was so salty, right? Because I'm like, finally, I've made it to an ESL Pro League final. Oh, it's on Facebook. Like, no one's watching. Fuck.
That one was good though, because we at the after party we so all the Navi guys, like, they somehow Erk knows them, like, or he knows Electronic, who just joined or something, and Electronic was like, oh, Erkast, and he comes over and they're speaking Russian because Erk speaks Russian.
Right.
And I think that's why they like each other, is because they can speak it. But then like Simple, Kane, and Electronic came and joined us for drinking games at the after party. So, and were you there for that?
I was there, but I wasn't at the after party. I was asleep in my hotel room.
Because I remember you at the event, but obviously, but I remember you at the after party, and that makes sense. You're just sleeping.
Yep.
So we're teaching Simple how to play King's Cup.
King's
Cup, yeah. So playing King's Cup with Simple, like, he threw Chris in the pool. So, like, it was just like the after party of that event was when we kind of became friends, or like got to know some of the top players there, I guess, and kind of it was a nice event for us in that regard. Like, obviously the performance and everything was bad, but like we kind of.
Well, you had a few days off, didn't you?
Yep, had a few days off. Went to a theme park there called, what's it called? The one, the ESL?
It was like right across the road. It was like Universal Studios or one of them Six Flags or something.
Six Flags. It was Six Flags.
I can remember. I was able to see the like roller coasters from my hotel room.
So we went there for one day. Sean and Erk went like on all the rides, and me and Will, we're like the same. Like, we hate roller coasters. Like, just not. I'm not scared of roller coasters, okay? But
Alpha
I don't
male.
don't like being on roller coasters. So,
by the way, totally unrelated. Have you watched the VOD back from Road to Rio?
I watched a few clips of you being a bit disrespectful, if that's what you mean.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we've got that context there as well.
You were a little bit disrespectful, and I respect it. But then there were also rounds where you're like, oh, I think he's underrated. Great player. And I was like, okay.
Well, see, I feel like
more respect.
If I'm going to talk shit about you, I also have to, like, be nice about you sometimes. So it kind of goes both ways.
It's all good. It's all good. We're still friends. That's why we're doing this, right?
Anyway, there was a thing where I was calling you a beta male, so the fact that you're not going on a roller coaster is like...
I'm not going on a roller coaster, because sometimes they fall and crash.
That's true.
We're way too cool for roller coasters. They're for lame kids.
True.
So we just went to walk around, like, and just kind of get a bit of sun and just perspective and stuff, after a bit of a disappointing event.
Yeah.
Sean and Erk, they're like actually like 3-year-old kids, like, oh, this roller coaster, and they're like running to the next line, and lining up for all of them, and me and Will were like the parents, just like drinking whatever we could find, you know.
Yep.
It's good.
I
Good
actually
event.
remember that being quite a chill event. I feel like the games started in the morning and then they finished by like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and everyone was just like hanging by the pool and having drinks and stuff, which was quite cool.
There was nothing. There was just nothing nearby.
Around. Yeah, there was that like one restaurant, that beef and rib restaurant or whatever that we went to the first day.
Dude, one thing I can't do about America when I go to food, like go to restaurants and stuff, is like the waiter was so pushy there. She's just like, I'm just like, oh, I'll just have water, thanks. And she's like, just water?
Yeah. Okay. You want to tip me?
Just give me water. And then she's like, every time, like, I take like one sip from my glass. I'm like, okay, put it down. She's straight back. She's like, do you want a top up? And I'm like, I haven't even finished the water. I just want to talk to my boys. And like, when it was like 4 p.m, we're getting dinner or something, and we're already all so cooked. And I think you were at that one, right? You came with us.
I went with one. Like, I went out with you guys one time. I think it was the first day or the second day.
Yeah. So we were super cooked, and she just kept coming over and trying to fill my water, and I was really irritable because I was tired. So I was like, no thanks. Just can't do it, man. But yeah,
just a different culture.
The point is, there was nothing around, so like, just had to sit by the pool and sunbathe. It was very.
Could have been worse. Really could have been worse.
Could have been a lot worse. Yeah.
Anyway, so you come back from that, right? And then again, like, we come back into like another domestic tournament. And to be fair, this is like one of your more. Like, you kind of stopped playing a lot of domestic tournaments after this, but this one's obviously a minor qualifier. Now, I don't know if you know where I'm going with this or if you remember this event, but this is the Faceit Minor Qualifier.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm going to say now, right?
Yeah.
Because I can see just by your reaction. Like, what the fuck happened with the seating at this event?
So the seating was like, obviously, just stupid. Like, whoever did the seating was just like, I don't know what they.
I'll jump in here for some context, right, before you get too deep into your discussion. Here's the teams that are on the top side of the bracket. Grayhound, Order, Tainted Minds, Darksided, probably the top 4 teams in the region at the time.
Yep. Bottom.
And you had Corvidae as well, which was like Lightstep, Chriso, Peasy Kid, some decent players in that roster.
Yeah.
And then on the bottom side of the bracket is like, it's literally like Avant. It's just pretty much Avant. There's no other good teams there.
Yeah.
Innovate, I don't know who those guys are. Yoink, Streamline, Gyra, Pracum, Elusive. You're like, okay, Streamline was okay, I guess. And then it's like basically Avant or Streamline to come out of that bottom side of the bracket. In the end, neither of them do. And so what the grand final ends up being for this Faceit Minor Qualifier
it was like Chelios and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Tainted Minds against a team called Pop 4 Zits. Which is Breaker, Marbin, Juices, Chelios, and Blicky. Like, how the fuck did that happen?
No clue. Just, like, obviously the seating was bad, and like, I think we were still, like, that tournament was so cooked for us. Like, I remember we were playing Order second, Beer 1.
You lost 19-17 to Order.
Yeah,
it was single elim as well. Like, that's the worst part as well.
We hadn't played Nuke in like a long time, and basically that game was like all my fault, because I remember Chris calling strats, and I was like, I don't know the smoke. Like, I don't know any of the smokes, because we hadn't played Nuke since like ESL Pro League. Like, we hadn't played it for such a long time, and I'd only been with the team for a little bit of time learning the strats. We didn't really go over them again, and like, I didn't get to practice like my roles in those. So I just had no idea what I was doing. So Chris was like, all right, let's just walk out top or something. Like, we just had to do really basic T strats. So basically that loss was a lot on me, like not knowing what I had to do, basically. And there was just like, it was so bad. Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't really matter in the end. You didn't qualify for that minor because of all this, and I remember a massive shitstorm about the seating in this event. But whatever. Regardless, 2018 ends up being a pretty decent year for Grayhound, right? Because you guys go to like a lot of these international events, a lot of like, I'll call them like solidifying events, right? Where you sort of solidified yourselves as the best team in the region, because you already were generally considered the best team after IEM Sydney. But once you went to things like IEM Shanghai, Dreamhack Masters, ESEA Season 29, Global Challenge, PLG Grand Slam, like all these events, you pretty much took all of them, and no one else went overseas for basically all of 2018. There are a couple of events that I want to touch on here, right? And one of them is IEM Shanghai. Now, if you remember, this was an 8-team event, and it was like during the player break as well. So most of the really good teams weren't in that competition. So you went to this event and everyone was like, you know what? Grayhound might actually be able to do something here. And then you kind of just got like fucked.
Yeah. We, that was another, like, there's like iconic moments in my career where I can think of like things where we learnt a lot about how we need to approach, like, not just like our own game, but also just like preparation and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was a big event where we went in with the exact same mindset that everyone had for us as well, that we could just like, we're like, oh yeah, we can just go in and we can just like, we're probably on paper one of the best teams here. It's us or VP. Like we'll just go in and we're like, we can easily win this. I think that's a terrible mindset to go into any event with. Like, not because you're confident in like the preparation you've done, but just confident in the fact that you're a good team. Because we hadn't done preparation, we hadn't done like anything special for this event. We didn't boot camp or anything like that. So we kind of just went in there as we were, like with Australian practice, and just like super confident that we'll beat these European teams who, you know, with players who are incredibly experienced as well. So I think we just went in and we kind of just like we had like high expectations, and I think when you don't, like when you kind of hit like a wall at some point, like you're versing a team and they're blocking you quite well, like on T side, you're struggling, you just get in a really bad mindset because you're just like expecting that these rounds should fall together somehow and you should be winning somehow, but you're just not. So yeah, that was a bad event. I think just going into it mindset wise, mentality wise, was just terrible for us.
Yeah. So you obviously learned a little bit there. And again, you know, it was one of those events where you were just able to deny anyone else from the Oceanic region from going, which still sort of benefits you regardless of how you perform at that event. So this was kind of around the time where you, as Grayhound, sort of stopped playing a lot of the domestic competitions here in Australia and New Zealand. Like, was that sort of a conscious decision, or is this just a byproduct of the fact that you were qualifying or getting invited to the majority of these international events?
I think we kind of realized at some point that so if we keep playing in all these domestic tournaments, we don't really have time to develop our game at all, because it's just constant. Like we're overseas and we come back, then we're playing, then we don't have any rest, we don't have any chance to develop our own game, and that's a really important part of being a successful team and being able to stay consistently, which like I would say we have stayed consistently number one like for the last 2 years maybe.
Yep.
I think that's fair to say. And I think a big part of that is you know, having that time off to reevaluate, just like reset mentally and stuff like that. Like we have a lot of events where we'll come home and we just take like a week off, like even now we're taking a week off after Road to Rio. Like we just chill for a bit. Everyone gets to kind of like do the right, like obviously we're still playing CS individually and everything like that, but we're just resetting and kind of going out and finding what we think we need to change when it comes to, you know, our game and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I think if we'd played all those tournaments, we wouldn't have stayed, or we wouldn't have stayed as dominant as I think we did. Yeah, that's all I have.
Fair enough. So that again is where you sort of shot ahead of everyone else. Sort of again, like not that you weren't already the best team in the region, but this kind of solidified that once more, and it didn't now feel like anyone could even kind of challenge Grayhound domestically. So you're in a really, really good spot, and Grayhound's looking pretty sick, and then Gratisfaction goes to Renegades. Yeah. So what's going on in like Grayhound land at that point? You know, are you guys like, oh fuck, you know, we've lost our star AWPer, like this sick cunt, and now we have to find someone. You pick up Sterling, right? Which is like pretty interesting decision given the fact that he's still quite a fresh player at the time. So you want to talk me through some of the like the discussions maybe that happened, not only when Gratisfaction was like said to have been leaving, but also then when you guys were discussing like who do we actually pick up? What AWPer are we going to get?
Yeah, I'll run you through it quickly. So basically, I think Sean talked to Will first, obviously, because he was like the manager and everything, and and Will was also Sean, Will, and Erk were like a little best friend triangle. Like they were so like they're super close, and they still, like I'd say they still are. Like Sean and Will still talk every day. Like they're super close, and I think he went to Will and he was really torn because he's like, this is obviously a really good opportunity for me, but like this team, like Grayhound at the moment we're doing so well, and like I don't want to leave and then like for a chance at a team that's better, but like the opportunity is really good, and then like he doesn't want to leave Will and Erk behind because like they're his best mates, and Sean's like a real loyal guy. Like I think he did feel pretty bad with like how everything played out, like as in with him departing the roster. But I think it was undeniable that it was a good opportunity for him, and he was such a good player that like even if that Renegades team weren't successful, which obviously we know now they were, I think he would have stayed over in America. Like he would have got another offer from someone, because someone like there was teams out there that needed a good AWPer, and he is like made like his game sense and like his understanding of how to be a good supportive AWPer is something that like I think a lot of people don't respect enough, or like a lot of viewers don't really understand how much that means. But it's such an important skill to have, and he's really that's what he's like amazing at, in my opinion. So basically he was like, yeah, I think I'm going to take the offer, and we're like, that's totally reasonable, fair enough, like it's got to happen. So then we were like looking at the Oz teams, and we're like, who's a good AWPer that we can get? And obviously we went to Simon, because Simon or Sico, for the viewers who don't know him. I know him by his first name because I know pros, but that's not a big deal. Yeah, got it, nice. But we went to him, and he just joined that Tainted Minds lineup that was like him, Ustilo, Tux, someone and someone who I don't know. And I think it might have been Ofnu, to be honest.
Yeah, probably Ofnu, Zusi.
I think
I don't know.
Oh no, it was Simon. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. Whatever. That lineup, it was a pretty it was a pretty good lineup, to be honest.
Yam might have been in it, I think, at the time. Either way.
No, I think Yam left for to play WoW or something. But anyway, he just joined that lineup, and he was like really torn. I think he wanted to, like, he was like, I do really want to join you guys, but I also feel like I've already committed here, and I feel bad just like, not seeing where this goes. And that's reasonable. Like, obviously understood that. Obviously behind the scenes, we're like, gonna regret that, mate. Definitely gonna regret that. And
he did.
And he did, and that's why he came back. But yeah, so then we were like, well, there's not really any other AWPers, like there's no AWPers who are like defined, solid AWPers who have the experience and all that kind of stuff. So then we were like, well, Sterling, up and comer, he's a good player, he was good on Chiefs. He just like, his problem always was like, sorry, I got something in my throat. I think he struggled with confidence when it came to playing in teams with players like, I don't know. He basically just had confidence issues, I think, on our team, where I think he knows what he needs to do a lot of the time, and he knows like good decisions, and he makes good choices and stuff like that, but he wasn't confident in doing it with us. I'm not really sure.
I think it's a lot of pressure, right, for someone like that going into that position, because I can't even remember what team he was on before that. It might have been, was it Legacy, I think?
Yeah, because
Sterling was playing on.
Yeah.
So
he went from the Chiefs, like, so we picked him up when I was on Chiefs, and then I left, and then he went to Legacy after that, and then bounced, then came back to us. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think he spent very long on that Chiefs roster, because I really only remember watching him on the Legacy roster and then into Grayhound. But the Legacy roster was probably like 5th around that time in ANZ, which is not a big deal at all. They're not qualifying for anything internationally. They're not having these big games or anything like that.
He was always putting up good numbers for them, and I feel like he still does. Like, I think maybe it's just the group of guys he's playing with or something like that. Like, if he's friends with the guys, because he was friends with, it would have been Blitz. Like, it was Blitz, Soju, Hazard in Legacy, maybe.
It was maybe definitely Blitz and Soju. I think Stat was in that roster as well.
Oh yeah,
and Lonsdale, I'm pretty sure, would have been the fifth there.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, like for him, he's never played in one of these top teams, and then he gets pulled into the top team in Grayhound, which has got, people like you who've been around since 2016, Dexter the same, all these guys that are really big names in the ANZ region, and you're more or less taking him from mediocre domestic kind of results with a team like Legacy to international events, and sometimes almost tier 1 international events. So it's kind of a big jump for a player like that, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak too much on it. I think he's like, he is a really solid player. And I think he knows he knows the decisions that he has to make and all that kind of stuff. And that's when we were picking him up, I kind of said to everyone, like, he is going to have, like, that was his problem in Chiefs, was his confidence with, I guess, I don't know. Maybe it was playing with like strong personalities is the problem, because I know Tux, me, and Texter all had like very strong personalities and get like in server and stuff like that, like very sure of what we want to do and very spoken about like how we want to play. And I think that's the same on Grayhound is Erk, Chris, and I. I think I when I joined Grayhound, I wasn't as like, I stepped it down because I wasn't in a leadership role at all. And I think slowly I kind of tried to speak a bit more on that kind of stuff. And I think maybe, I mean, that could affect him. I don't really know, but he seems to have a lot of success, or he seemed to have a lot of success on the legacy lineup. So we were like, well, he's good up and coming AWPer. We'll pick him up. Like, we need an AWPer, and he's going to be the best option. I think at the time we approached Josh, and we approached Josh, and we were like, yeah, do you want to join? Because we'll put, like, basically Chris or I was going to AWP. I think probably Chris would have done it, and then we were going to get Josh in to just rifle, and we're like, that's the best we can do. And then we were kind of like, actually, Sterling's probably not a bad option to get us an AWPer, and then we don't have to change, because I didn't really want to change Chris out of the, like, out
definitely.
of his roles, because he's so good on the rifle that it's like...
I remember him AWPing in Winterfox as well, and this is not really a slight against him or anything, but I would say there's better AWPers, right? And I think if you're going to have Dexter in your roster, you don't want him to be the AWPer. You want him to be the IGL. You want him to be the sort of lurk rifler kind of guy that's making those plays.
Thing is, he's like... He has a really good understanding of just what every role, or like what he wants out of every role when he's in-game leading.
Right.
And the AWP role is something like you see Nitro pick it up, right? Like, he's not like a superstar AWPer. And I'm not saying, I think Chris is like mechanically such a good player that he would have been like a very good AWPer, in my opinion. Yeah. And
maybe if like that was his full focus, I guess.
Yeah. But he also knows how, like, as a supportive, like as I was saying earlier, he knows how a supportive AWPer needs to play. And that's such a big thing as an AWPer that's almost enough. Like, that's what got Nitro over the line, or like what got Liquid over the line a lot when he was AWPing, was he's such a good supportive AWPer. He knows how to hold lines. He knows how to use util for his teammates. And like, that's what you can build a game plan around that. If you have, 4 good riflers and then an AWPer who knows how to be, like, not trying to be the star player. He knows how to just support. And I think that's what Chris would have been really good at. Like, obviously he can go for picks and everything and he'll get those, but he just has that understanding of like how he can best help the team, like in an execute or in a default or whatever.
Okay,
but
so
at the end of the day, Josh said he didn't want to leave because he's a dog, but you
always get him in the end, though. We've talked so many about these players where you've been like, we'll try and get this person. They all come crawling back eventually, Malta. They all come crawling back.
What happened was Josh. The same thing happened. So Simon left Order, or got replaced on Order by Josh, and so Simon had just gone to Tainted. And when we approached him, and he was like, I want to see how this goes. And Josh had just gone to Order, and he was like, I feel really bad if I leave. Like Jordan, like I think he was already friends with Jordan, friends with Ali, and he was like, I don't want a dog. Like, it's pretty bad to just, like, these guys would get screwed over pretty bad if I left. Like, straight away, and also just want to see how the roster goes. So we were like, that's fair, all good. So anyway, basically Sterling was like our option. We were like, we'll get him, he'll be good. And yeah, it kind of like, I mean, we won everything, went to the minor and everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, you guys did reasonably well with Sterling. Anyway, before we get into like that sort of period discussion where you were playing with Sterling, I want to talk a little bit about one sort of maybe departure in your career, I guess, that you've had from being a player. And this was a wonderful time where we got to cast together when we were casting Extremes Lane, right? This was just around mid to late 2018. So before you went over to Katowice in 2019 with Sterling. But what was it like for you to sort of dip your toes into casting? Was it easy as you thought, or was it harder than you thought?
Yeah, really hard. I think the hardest part of casting is like, so I think I can read the game, because when you have the perspective of both teams, it's so easy to see what each player is thinking in a moment. Like, you can kind of understand why they're making those decisions. And I think I can see that quite easily because I been in all those situations that they've been in, and I can like understand the player's perspective of it a lot. So I can give a lot of insight on that, which is what I tried to do. I think.
Yep.
Was like why a team might do a certain strat or why this player did a certain thing, but the actual like play like I could never do play by play. I don't think. Like I could, but I think I'd have to learn. Like
takes a while.
Yeah, bloody difficult to see things happen and then smoothly without stuttering or like without thinking about what you're gonna say, like make it sound like or just basically tell people what's happening. Like I can't do that at all. So I was like, Jordan, you do that. Because I took charge of the alpha male.
That's right.
So I said,
you definitely walked into that studio and said, "This is how it's going to be."
Walked in, fly undone, unzipped. I was like, Jordan, I'm in charge here.
Yep.
All right.
This is exactly how I remember it as well.
Yeah, this is definitely exactly how it happened. You do the play by play. I'll do the rest. And then I winked. I was like, I'll do the rest. Like that.
Yep. Did you end up actually casting with anyone aside from me at that? By the way.
Oh,
you cast with Danny?
Yeah.
So again, that like kind of makes sense as a pairing, because he takes very much that hosty play-by-play role.
Yeah, I couldn't do it with him though. He was the alpha in that one.
I see.
He was in charge.
Big dude.
Yeah. He even offered me a phone case. He's like, "You want a phone case?" And I was like, "Yes, sir."
That's definitely a Danny King thing to do though. Like if I know him, he's like got these random shit all the time.
Yeah, he was just like, "Nice phone. You need a case?" Because I got a case back at home, and I was like, "Yes, sir."
Anyways, what I wanted to really touch on with this here is obviously it was a fairly infamous moment for Counter-Strike in general, with Forsaken being caught cheating on LAN at these Extremes LAN finals. And so I can remember, and I don't know if this is the same from your perspective, but I remember watching this game and going, like it's a little bit fishy, but...
He was so sus, bro. I was like...
I've had these moments all the time though, right? Like you're watching a game and you're like... Maybe it's just Go TV lag or like something just looks weird. Yeah. I never really think anything of it, but there was this one moment where he traced the guy through the quad box on Cache.
We were looking at each other, bro.
We just looked at each other like, what the fuck was that? So like, were you kind of like convinced before any of that shit went down that he was cheating, or?
I kept giving you looks. So I don't know if you were cottoning on. I feel like you were, because you were kind of giving me these like, what's going on?
I mean, I was, but like I didn't want to say anything on the broadcast because you just don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, because it was my first gig, like when he did that aim lock at quad, I was like, you were doing the play by play, and I was gonna be like aim lock or something like that. But I was like, obviously unprofessional, can't do that. Like I don't really know what the go is with like all that kind of stuff on broadcast. I was like, I'll just play it safe and not say anything. I remember just like giving you the eyes, like that was pretty magical. That he just like just absolutely aim locked and shot at this guy. And there was like a few at B main as well where he just, I was like, yeah, right, like maybe this happens a lot. Maybe like everyone has clips like this, but yeah, it was pretty
sus. And then we obviously had that massive fill segment for like 30 minutes. Did it ever like was there like a switch in your brain where you were like, oh shit, like maybe someone's found him hacking, or were you just sort of thinking like this is a run of the mill tech pause? Because at that time I was still thinking, this must just be like a normal tech pause. I'm just I'm just chatting, doing whatever.
Someone getting caught mid, like, someone getting caught mid game is so like,
unfathomable, really.
I was like, oh, well, it's just LAN where like, someone's run over a USB cable with their like PC or something and it's just broken. They have to fix it somehow. Yeah. Like, so I don't know, delays like that, especially at, like non-ESL, like not that I'm an ESL shell or Dreamhack or any of those guys, but they all do everything. You won't find delays this bad at those events unless it's something pretty serious. But it seems like, I was just thinking, it's definitely a PC's broken or like,
Turned out to be something pretty serious in the end. Anyway, so did you ever feel like you were sort of part of Counter-Strike history in that moment? Because I do, that's one of like the biggest events in my career that I've ever casted, which is kind of funny to say in a way, but like as far as eyeballs is concerned, I think on the Extremes LAN channel that was the most viewed clip, or it might have been even on the ESL's. It might have been on an ESL channel or something, because I remember it being like kind of a big deal where I was like, fucking hell, Malta's come in and he's cast one event and like already he's got more eyeballs as a caster than I pretty much have had in my whole career. Yeah,
it's pretty funny because I remember because we were in Sydney and so I'd flown in that day and then like Ubered because from Melbourne, everyone who doesn't know, from Sydney, live in Melbourne. So I just come back and Mum was like, oh, I'll come pick you up from the I'll come pick you up from the studios
Mm.
because like I hadn't seen her in like a few months. So I told actually it was my sister. Sorry, my sister came and picked me up, and I told them a time, and then they came in. And I was like, sorry, there's delays going on, like all this, shit's happening, and we don't know why. It might be like another half an hour, and they're like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then when we kind of found it out, I was like, that is like just so huge. Like it's such. I was trying to explain to like my sister and her fiance like what was going on, and like I think from the outside they just couldn't understand how big it was.
Yeah.
Like that had happened, but I was like, you don't understand. Like he's cheating on land, and they're like, oh okay,
Yeah.
he's cheating, is he? And I'm like, it's on land. You don't understand. Like this hasn't happened before in like, or hasn't happened for such a long time that someone's been caught,
Yeah.
red-handed mid-game as well. It's crazy.
So you had a bit of fun casting there, I'm assuming. Like, would you ever consider casting again one day? Like, let's say you finish your career as a player. Is that something that you might want to move into, or would you look to, I don't know, just completely disregard CS or move into a coaching role or something like that?
Well, I was just stretching my wrist just then because it's very sore right now. And I don't know why. So I might be forcefully retired at some point by health issues. I'm pretty sure I've got like some kind of
arthritis or something.
Yeah, that's what you sign up for. But yeah, I mean, at some point, I think coaching something I definitely would be interested in. I don't know if I'd be that good at it, to be honest. But it's definitely something that like it's a good way to stay in the scene. I think afterwards, and you can kind of share the experience that I've attained over the over the last like 3 years or whatever. But I think I'd like to keep playing for a lot longer, to be honest. It's kind of like a good time right now to be a player.
Definitely.
And casting obviously as well. Casting is something I'd like to do if coaching doesn't work out for me, or after coaching, or with coaching. I can do both. Sniper did it, right?
Yeah, he was. I don't know actually how that sort of all ended up for him. I think he was playing in Atletico and sort of still doing a bit of casting around that time as well.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, let's move into 2019, right? Because we're only there, and there's still a fair bit to talk about here. So Katowice 2019 is the first event that you go to, and you obviously play in the minor.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that you actually qualify for the major.
Yeah.
So this is a big moment for you guys. Sterling's coming to the roster. Everything seems to be going phenomenally, right?
Stickers, everything's looking good.
Mm.
Yeah, that was like always a goal of mine. That was kind of one of the final things for me that I wanted to tick off my list of like things I want to achieve in my career. And stickers was kind of like I'd achieved a lot of things that I set myself pretty like basic goals. I felt like when I first set out, like just things like like get stickers in the game was, or qualify for the major was a big one. But getting stickers, like just being immortalized in the game, is like a big thing for me. I feel like that was pretty important. From the get go, that's always something I wanted. And just like tournaments and beating number one teams, stuff like that. Like that was always goals that I'd set. And I guess 2019 was kind of the year where like a lot of those goals, like I fulfilled like pretty much the whole checklist of things I wanted to achieve. And yeah, the starting with that for the first part of the year was obviously like it's something we had missed out on the year before, and I felt like we kind of felt like we'd been cheated out of it with the Faceit major thing. Like, I mean, we let ourselves down, but just the seeding was a bit like we were a bit angry. But it was really nice to kind of start the year off, like kick the year off with just that, and yeah, it was sick.
So you end up going into the major, and I think you ended up actually coming dead last. But like, were you pretty happy with how things ended up? I know it's a bit of a zinger, right? But you've made it to the major. Like, who cares if you come last? You've got the stickers in the game. You've won the Asia Minor. You've sort of put yourselves in that position as the best in Asia, or second best or Asia, whatever.
Came second to Renegades, right?
Yeah, would have been second to it. But like, as far as domestic teams are concerned, I think you've put yourself on that mark.
I think we were happy. Yeah, it was nice to get to that at our first. Like, it was our first, or for me, it was my first. Sorry, it was my first minor with the guys.
Right.
I think it was nice to get that far with that minor, but then afterwards, it's kind of like you're like, okay, for the next one though, we need to be better.
Yeah.
Because we could, yeah.
So I had one question about that whole sort of tournament, and it was in regard to MVP PK, because MVP in the last 6 to 12 months prior to that had been like beating you in pretty much everything. And yet at this event, you kind of slammed them. So was there ever like a grudge or not like a grudge so much, but like maybe a rivalry, or were they someone that you sort of looked to sort of be like, okay, if we can beat them, like we've sort of done it?
We were always, I can't remember how many times we've lost them, but I feel like it wasn't too many times. Like it might have been one. I feel like we lost them at that. So we lost at the ESL LAN, the Pro League qualifier, like at the start of 2018, and that was when I first joined the team, and that was a weird situation because we went into that game and we knew the seedings.
I remember talking to you guys, and you were like, "It doesn't matter because it's just a seeding game." And I was like, "I already know they're going to lose this game."
And the seedings were like, if we won, it was worse for us because if you won, you played in in the harder group for the actual tournament. So we were kind of like, okay, well, we'll just have a bit of fun with this. Like we don't really care win or lose. So like, not saying that we didn't take it like the game overly seriously, but I think we played train or something. I'm pretty sure we played train in it, and we didn't like at all play train. Like it was like a perm ban or something. So we kind of were like, all right, let's just have fun. Like let's just play for a bit of a laugh. And then after that map, so we let train through because we were like, actually, like we had prepared like a bit on train, right? And we were like, we just want to test it, basically, have fun. Like if we lose, we lose, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll test it now. And we got destroyed. And then after that, we were kind of in two minds. Where like half the team was like having fun. So like I know me and Erk were like having a bit of a laugh the whole time. Like our mindset just wasn't in that game, basically. And then after that, that's when everyone was like, "Oh, MVP is like the best team and the best team in Asia, better than Grayhound." And I think we only ever versed them after that at the minor, and that's when we were kind of like, we knew that we were the better team. Just individually, we had like a lot more experience at that point as well. It's a year, like it's almost, I think it was a whole year later, the next time we versed them.
Yeah, you didn't end up versing them too much more after that, actually, and now they obviously don't exist anymore. But let's move on from Katowice, because you guys obviously did pretty well to make it to the major and whatever. You've continued to improve as a roster, and then Sterling gets removed. So Sico comes on in. We've sort of already talked a little bit about Sterling and why he was chosen, and maybe then why he was replaced in the end. So Sico comes on in, and this is around the time of IEM Sydney 2019. And I remember these storylines, and it was particularly around you for IEM Sydney 2019, because I think you were the only domestic player at that point then that had played at all three IEMs. So you were like Mr. 3-time or something like that?
Yep, still in the Twitter bio, Mr.
Really?
3-time.
Of course.
If they don't know why that is, I think Will convinced. He was like, "Man, that's so sick, bro. You should be Mr. 3-time." And I was like, "All right." So then I did it. But yeah, that's
So I think once you get 4, you're going to be Mr. 4-time, or?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it just goes up.
Just keeps going.
Yeah.
What if you don't manage to qualify for one? Awkward.
Yeah. What if it's not IEM Sydney anymore? What happened?
Awkward.
Yeah. Awkward. Anyway, I'll be Mr. 3-time and Mr. 1-time.
Anyway, in this event, in IEM Sydney 2019, you go up against FaZe again. And once again, you guys claim a pretty big scalp at an IEM event, right? FaZe, you beat them, and you
they were playing without.
They were, but, it's still kind of like, Grayhound can still manage to get wins over these sort of teams in IEM.
Yeah, I think that was a tournament as well where we were confident going into it, obviously, because we have this roster now who we're really set on. And it's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about how teams back in the day always had that one player who they didn't believe it, like who everyone in the team didn't like fully trust, almost, is like a thing. Like you need to be able to trust your teammates to be able to do like all these things I was talking about earlier, because otherwise like you're going to try and compensate in a certain way. And that's what throws your team dynamic out. And I think we finally had that lineup after like a year of searching for it. And I think Simon coming in was really good because it was just like he was really confident in what he wanted to do, and that's what Chris was like didn't like about the way Sterling played. So Simon came in, he kind of was just fully like, I'm going for this pick, I'm doing this, I'm going to do this, like come do this for me. And that was like Chris was like, oh yay, like Simon,
yay.
Like he was like yay, basically, yeah. And it was just a good event for us because we just all were confident in each other, I think. And that's, I don't know.
Was there, though, like a degree of disappointment when you lost to Fnatic? Because, again, it's like, you got so close to making it into the stage match. And again, you know, it's like this third time in a row where you just can't seem to get past this point. So like, even though as a roster, you know, you're progressing and you're getting better results elsewhere, you still haven't found that like almost holy grail of a result for an ANZ Counter-Strike team.
I think the thing with Fnatic is we always have a lead against Fnatic, and then we just like I won't say we throw it away because they work really hard to get it to bring it back, and they always something about them. They're so like not I don't know what the word is, like almost like tenacious. Like even if they're down 12-3 or it doesn't matter, like they can, and that's something we think pretty highly about ourselves, is that we can always bring around like a game back. But they do it just every time we verse them, we have an advantage and we'll lose it somehow. Like they're just really, they never give up, and that's something. Yeah, I don't know. We always end up versing Fnatic at like in these knockout games or in these like important like games that qualify us for the stage, and it's happened like 3 times I think now, and we just keep losing. They're a really difficult team to overcome and to I guess for us. So hopefully one day we can beat them. But yeah, it was a bit sad. Kind of like for me, I think because it was 2 years in a row where we'd stumbled at like the final hurdle, kind of, or yeah, with Chase and then with Grayhound, and then this year was kind of like I was like, all right, it's going to be different this year because like finally we've got the team to do it this year, and then yeah, well, I think we're up. I'm pretty sure we're up like 12-3 on Dust 2 against Fnatic. I think it was at IEM Sydney. Can't remember. We've got them so many times.
Yeah,
but
you lost 2-0 to Fnatic, but I think you were beating them because I've written down here that it's like a sense of deja vu where you got so close, but you're still so far away, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think we were beating them on the first map, and then we threw it away, and then after that, we were just like pretty emo about it. I think a little bit, which didn't affect us too much on the second map, but as in after the series, we were like just super like, oh, like man,
yeah, fuck, not again.
So close, yeah, not again. But you know, we're also versing like these teams are very good teams, and even though they're a little bit jet lagged, it doesn't mean they aren't you know, sick teams and sick players. So it is what it is.
All right, so then we'll jump forward a little bit in time. You, in between this, went to ESL Pro League Season 9 finals, which, again, not really anything to kind of touch on there. It was a bit of a meh event, as the ESL Pro League curse seems to have continued. Then we get to the Starladder Asia Minor, and this was a big one. I remember watching this from home, and first, there's a few interesting results in this one, right? First off is the 16-0 against Avant. So all I've got here is like, why did you have to do that to him? You know, like the other Aussie team in the competition, why have you had to go and 16-0 them?
Yeah, that was kind of, yeah, it was pretty funny, to be honest. I feel like it's just one of those games. Like, I think they were having a laugh. Like, obviously, it is what it is, but I think they were having a bit of a laugh afterwards as well. Like, just like, yeah, it happens, you know. Like, I think Nuke, CT, we just, like, we're obviously very confident on our Nuke, and I think they were feeling like Nuke's one of those maps where you can get to 8-0 on CT side, and then the T side can make a decision at that point to either get the next 7 or to, like, lose the next 7. And, like, it happens a lot where you'll see Nuke, like, it'll go to, like, 6-0 or 7-0 or something, and that's when the T side will then start bringing it back because they kind of have that one round that gets the economy going. But yeah, I just think they were just under a lot of pressure, and then it kind of just snowballs, and they were just like, no, not a 16-0, and then
it happens.
Kind of it happens.
I mean, fair enough. I guess Avant at the end of the day did end up performing pretty well at that event from memory, so it wasn't like a career ender for them.
It was good signs, I think, from them. Definitely.
Okay, so you go on from that game, and then whatever, the rest of the minor kind of happens. Not anything too interesting to touch on until you get to the grand final. And you're in the third map against Tyloo. You're up 15-11. And, you know, I feel like you're kind of doing a bit of an Orderverse Cloud9 right here where you're like, okay, we're going to the major. We're up 15-11.
Were we up 15-11?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I didn't realize that. That's a bummer. That is a bummer. Oh, well.
And so then you lose 4 rounds in a row. So at that point, are you thinking like, yeah, we're basically going to the major?
I honestly can't remember that. All I remember is going to OT. Like that's all I can remember is like just being in OT and it just being super tense, and then afterwards just hype. Yeah. I can't even remember it.
Okay, let's forget about the 15-11 then. You do end up going into overtime. And Malta at this point is like a fucking Superman, superhuman doing incredible shit. You
Yeah.
win a 1-on-2, right? But okay, here's the situation, right? Tyloo's up 18-6. You're going to lose the map. It's a 1-on-2, post plant, you're retaking the B bomb site solo. You tap the bomb, Summer peeks out from upper and misses you with an orb shot, and you win the 1-on-2. So what's going through your mind at this point? Are you like, fucking hell, I'm so lucky? Or are you like, I'm a god?
It's like, I don't know. It's like one of those. I get in these situations sometimes where you're in a clutch and it's like, it's such an important one, and like, or it's such an important round or just something like that. It doesn't have to be specifically like for the game or whatever. But it kind of like I can just like go in this zone where I'm just like, all right, I'm not losing. Like I'm not losing this, and you kind of just convince yourself that that's the outcome of the round is you're not losing, and then every decision you make, you're just so sure of, or like I don't know, this is how I feel. I can do this. And I feel like I should just do it every round, but I don't.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, why don't you just do that every round?
It's hard. It's just like when there's all that pressure, it's like some people crumble, and otherwise you just like for me, it's just full confidence. Like I'm just like, all right, I know exactly what I need to do, and I'm going to do it now. And like if you don't win the round, then like you still took the right steps. That was like the best chance in your mind to win that round.
Okay. This is an interesting question then, which is related to that. And I was going to ask you a bit later, but I think now is a good time to tie it in. And I've noticed that in your career, right, you seem to play like, okay, you know, I'd say like moderately during average kind of games and games that don't matter too much. You know, you might be like 0.9 or something or 1, depending on what the opponent is. But where you play your best seems to be like these super high pressure situations, these super important games. So do you kind of consider yourself a big game player?
I think, yeah, I'd say so. I don't know. I just think I have like probably have a bit of a problem of like when games aren't that important to me mentally, I'll just kind of be like a little checked out.
Yep.
Which is pretty bad. Like I feel like that's something I'd individually working on, like not being that kind of guy, because it's not good for the team at all. But yeah, sometimes I'll just be like a little bit like whatever. Like we're gonna win this game anyway. You know what I mean? Which is really like now I say it out loud, really bad. But like it's just, and it always feels that way when we're playing in Oz and stuff. Kind of just always feels that way. Like it doesn't matter what happens. Like we're always
you could be down 12-3 on the second map after losing the first map, for example, and still win somehow. Yeah,
it's just I don't know. It's bad mindset, and I'm not always in it. It's just sometimes like there are games where I'll just be like, right, whatever. Okay. And but in big games, it's like full like it's like, you know, we need all hands on deck, otherwise like we have no chance of winning. So that's when like and it's I don't know if it's just me. I feel like maybe everyone has a little bit of it in them, of just like in these big games you're full try hard, like you're trying to win, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas in the other games you're just expecting to win, and that's like a pretty important definition because it's a big difference.
So back to the minor discussion then. You end up going 45-24 in that map against Tyloo to win the series. Do you consider that the best map you've ever played as an individual?
Probably. Yeah. I don't know. It was pretty like that was just so weird. Like I don't even think I had a lot of kills on CT side. Like I don't think I was top fragging until like we got on T side, and I just picked up the Krieg back when like no one was using the Krieg back then. Like or like it wasn't everyone using it. So so the CTs didn't have any Kriegs. So I just had it, and I was just getting 3Ks every round. Somehow like just like someone entries, I just go out and I just like got kills. And it was a weird game. Like I didn't really realize I had like a lot of kills until after the game, when like Simon, like after the game, Simon's like, "Nice, Liam," and like came up and hugged me. He's like, "Thank you for the stickers," and like trolling me a little bit. But like that's when I was kind of like, "Oh yeah, that actually was a pretty."
I carried that game.
That was a big game. Yeah.
Okay, so there's this very famous or maybe infamous interview after that where Smix is talking to you guys, and she ends up throwing a question to Dickstacy, which is always a dangerous idea.
Never going to get a PG answer for stream. Indeed. But
so she asked him something about you, you know, like, what do you think of Malta? Like, he's such a cool guy or something. And he just goes, I just want to suck his dick. So all I want to know is, and I don't want
No.
you necessarily to answer this question. Oh, I just
Nope.
want to know, were you
No.
No, I was going to say, were you roommates with Dickstacy at that event?
No, who was I rooming with at that event? Starladder. Oh, was it? I can't even remember. Simon. It was me. It's me and Simon. Yeah. No.
Bad luck. Once in a lifetime opportunity, and it seems like you've missed out.
More chance with Simon than with Ollie. So anyway, moving on.
Moving on. Okay, let's move on to Dreamhack Masters Malmo then, which is a few months later. So now in September 2019, and we're almost catching up to present day. So this is where you go into this event and you are playing against Liquid, who are considered the best team in the world. They are ranked 1 in September 2019 going into this event, and you win.
Yeah. I think it was like the biggest upset of all time, like in terms of rank, just like the biggest gap in ranks that like has ever upset. I think they were going through a bit of a tough time at during that game. But it also kind of just felt like another one, like going back to the in the zone kind of feeling. Like it felt like everyone was just like we all kind of went into that like internalized zone where you just like, all right, we're down 12-3 or something. Like we were down 12-3 on Mirage or something, or 11-4 or something. Like we had a really bad CT side. And we were kind of just like, all right, whatever. Like we believe like everyone in the team here knows that we can win this game. And it kind of goes like it's like an unspoken thing. Like everyone like it's like telepathy or whatever. You're just like, we can win the game, and everyone has the same thought at the same time. And we kind of just go up to like that next level of like just I don't know, just understanding like how everyone on the team is going to play out around, and like how we can help each other and all that kind of stuff. And comms are just like really on point, like straight away, good, calm info, just basic stuff, and everyone's clutching. Like just one of those games, like where it just felt like everything was going right.
Yeah, so this is where I was going to ask you the big game question, because you ended up going 48 and 32 in this game as well over the course of 2 maps, and sort of top fragged for the server. So, you know, it's just another one of those sort of examples where it seems like once the going gets tough, then Malta kind of gets going a little bit. This game in particular, like, put you into a really good position in DreamHack Masters Malmo, right? Where you guys, I feel like this is probably your best result, like as a roster, right?
Yeah, because so we beat EG, which is already, I know they were jet lagged, and that's obviously a discussion to have. And the same with Liquid as well. Like jet lag, obviously big discussion. But because they just won, New York, ESL won New York, and then they came over and they lost to us. Like that was already everyone's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like EG from like the shortest era of all time. And then we versed Fnatic again, I'm pretty sure.
No, you versed NIP. You lost to NIP 2-0, who knocked you into the lower bracket.
Yeah. So that was a game where we were like, right, we've done the hard work, we've won the BO1, now we get to verse like NIP, who we saw as an easier opponent to the other teams that we've beaten in the past. And we're like, okay, we can beat these guys for sure. And we kind of just, I don't know, we just fell pretty convincingly to them. Pretty sure we got destroyed. And then, yeah, going up against Liquid, it was just one of those like do or die kind of things. And we knew that like, obviously they were favored and everything. But beating them then put us like, we were like, all right, just one more BO3 and we get to win. We get to play on stage. And that's like the last thing that pretty much all of us want to tick off on our, like, I don't think none of us have really played on like a big stage, on an event. Sorry,
like
on a stage at
event.
a big
event.
Yeah. Exactly. And that was like the last thing we had to do was beat Mousesports. Who's obviously, that was, I think, a little bit before everyone like knew how good they were, but they were still the same team. Like they're still such a solid team then. And we knew it as well. We know they're a great team.
So you guys have this massive result in DreamHack Masters, 7th to 8th, which, like, it doesn't sound that good, but for an Australian team, you know, you've beaten ENCE, you've G2s, Liquid, Optic, Envy, Tyloo, North, and Evil Geniuses all finished lower than you in this event. So it's kind of a big deal. And then, you know, come December 2019, once everything's looking like fully sick, another roster change has to occur. This time it's Erkast. He doesn't get his visa.
No, Erkast been... Because we played DreamHack with Josh. Am I wrong on that?
DreamHack Masters Malmo?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had Josh, right?
Oh, you did.
Am I correct?
So, okay. So
Yeah.
either way, let's talk about Erkast not getting his visa, because I think that's a pretty big, important part of Greyhound's history. So how does that like affect the team as a whole, you know, because Erkast is one of the founding members. He's considered one of the best players that, you know, has played in ANZ, and a big sort of kind of leadership role within the team alongside Dexter.
Yeah, it's a sad one. I mean, Erk's still like still like a really good friend. Like yeah. It was like like I don't know. I was always really close with Erk, I felt like, and he's such a good dude, and I really am sad that it's kind of like with the Renegades deal coming in, that was kind of like all our hard work like it had been recognized, and like we got the chance now that we kind of felt we always like were on the lookout for. And it's kind of sad that Erk misses out on that, because like it's just the way the world is right now. Like it's hard for him to get a visa in Oz, and like Australia doesn't really respect like the esports. Like we tried, we had a look like with immigration lawyers and stuff, like trying to find a way to get him just like to be able to stay, and the only way was like he had to keep doing his university degree, I think. And it was basically like if you did that, he's like I can't do it and play CS at the same time, and like if I try to do that, then I'm just gonna fail and get like sent back home anyway.
Yeah.
And it's a waste of money and like just all this stuff. So end of the day, it just wasn't possible. And it's I think it's really sad, because the whole project is like it was his project, and obviously sharing leadership with Chris when Chris came in, but now it's kind of like he's not part of it anymore, and that's that's sad.
So when Erkast left the team, he was replaced by Inns. And I had a question about that, because in the past it seemed like Greyhound was quite happy to sort of explore options and maybe look at newer players, for example, Sterling. But it seems like that mentality now has changed and shifted once Erkast is gone. You know, you're no longer looking for like a newer player or anything like that. You've gone straight to Inns, who's a veteran. He's a known quantity. So was he like the only option, or was there other players that were considered to potentially replace Erkast at the time?
I wouldn't say that we're like, just to pick apart the question a little bit, I wouldn't say we're like against up and coming players or anything like that. Like that's not why we like Josh is just like an undeniable like quantity, in that he was and is and has been always been a good player. And he's always been reliable, and he's always like when I worked with him on Chiefs, like he had like issues in his in his gameplay that needed fixing, and things like he had like problems with like his communication was bad at the start, and then his confidence was like a problem, but like he's always worked on it, and he's always had a good mindset working on that. And that's something that like you don't get out of like a lot of players in Oz. Like it's so difficult to find players who are willing to work on themselves, like in a capacity where like someone will say, hey, your communication's like a bit of a problem at the moment, and like you just need to pick it up. And like I think Tyler said that to him, and then like straight away scrims that night, like the next day, instantly he was working like so much on it, and he improved so quickly. And that's something like that, as someone who played with him, I was like, well, that makes him a good, like he's always a good teammate in my head. Like he never has beef, he never has like he'll always try something, he'll always like fix problems if he has them, which rarely does anymore, because he's just so like someone like that who I know has that capacity behind them, and then also he's putting up all these numbers on order, like we just know like there's no way you can look past that. He's just such a good player, so we had to get him. Like he was the only one to replace Erk, really.
So no one was even like part of the question apart from
we're like we're definitely getting like Josh is the only option,
and you guys sort of have the brand power now to basically pick and choose whoever you want, right?
This was right before, so like this was why we were still Greyhound, and we kind of were like so I messaged him and was like, hey man, have you rethought your decision? Like where Erk's got to go back home, so we're looking to replace him. And Josh was just like, yeah, keen, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Like I've given the order thing a chance, and like that it hadn't worked out just with like us beating them for qualifiers or something. And so he was like, all right, I've given it a chance, and now I feel like it's reasonable for me to
move
part
on
ways,
or whatever. Okay, so then you get the Renegades acquisition. So like, how did this kind of come about? You know, I imagine a lot of that was to do with Will and obviously the old team moving on to 100 Thieves. But when did you sort of first hear about this, and like, what were your thoughts when you were potentially moving to Renegades as a roster?
Will actually called it. So like he's talking to Sean, like they're still mates and stuff like that, and Sean was like, oh, we're like 100 Thieves is happening or something like that. Like basically just like we were like, okay. So when we knew 100 Thieves was 100%, we were like, and like when it got announced, we called, like Will was like, oh, Renegades are 100% going to approach us and like try and get us as their team now. And then like a week later or something, Renegades hit him up and was like, hey, what's up? We want to get your team. And he was like, oh, cool, dude. And then, yeah, anyway, he's a sensible guy.
So you guys were like keen for that? Because I wanted, you know, obviously Grayhound being a organization that was really the team. Like the team was the org. So was there like a sense of something being lost when you moved on from Grayhound? Not only for yourself, but, you know, particularly for some of the other players that have been there since the beginning.
I think, yeah, I was really, yeah, it's like the feel of Grayhound, right? Is like something you can never get if you want to have like the same level of investment in a team, right? So like if you want the level of investment that the top teams are getting, you can't have this family, like the Grayhound family feel kind of thing, because Grayhound itself was as much like what you're saying, it was the team. So like we made decisions about like not taking anything away from Will, because he's like he ran it himself as well, and he was doing all the social media and all that kind of stuff. But if we wanted to do content, it was a team decision. If we wanted like sponsorships, like we like it was kind of our decision along with Will. Like Will would be like, these guys want to come on board, what do you think? And we'd like talk with him and stuff. And it was a really good environment in I think because I'd come from an environment like Chiefs, who was, it felt like, I don't know, it kind of like, it sounds bad if I say it like any way that I'm trying to put it, but like Grayhound just had a feel that like no other org like can imitate, because it's such a like, it was homegrown. Like Will had like his idea for it, and he kind of just let the team run it basically.
So you feel as though you've kind of lost something, or is there like a cultural shift within the team now that you're Renegades as opposed to Grayhound?
It's actually been really good with like they're letting us do our own thing, like when we want to do content and all that kind of stuff. And that's the same thing as Grayhound. It's just like there's just like that extra level of people to run stuff by, and that's like not to say that's a bad thing, because professionalizing a career and like an industry is like a really good thing for everyone involved. It's just like basically what I miss with Grayhound is like how silly we could be, because we were just super like,
there was no consequences for Grayhound, really.
Exactly, yeah. Like there were no sponsorship like agreements that meant we couldn't, you know, swear on videos, and we couldn't like just be stupid and like make really bad content that we thought was really funny. Like all our content, if you look at it, it's like it's just so stupid, but it's like to us it's hilarious, and we kind of feel like if we think it's funny, then we hope that the fans are also in a similar situation as us.
Ironically, I was actually watching some of the Grayhound content while I was like researching this video, and I was watching, I think, one of the minor ones you did from the minor, where Erkast was like literally just saying to the screen like, no fun, or no funny business, or no laughing or something.
This is serious talk.
and then he would just like fucking start laughing, and I was like, this shouldn't be funny, but it is.
It is. Like it's just, that's the kind of content where like when you know that that's what like Grayhound as a brand was the team, and that means people who are following the brand are following like the personalities of the team, and that's something that was really like, we could just make content, and if we found it funny, then everyone would. And that's like, if we found a video, like we did some stupid parkour video when we were just like in
I remember
a small town in Sweden at the Extra 5 bootcamp, and like we were just like, we were bored one day, and we were just like, right, we're gonna make this video. And I was just like, what if we just do some stupid parkour edit? And everyone's like, yeah, that could be funny. And so we just spent like an hour just like doing dumb parkour that's like, they're like, we're just laughing the whole time making it, because it's so like, it's just such quality like bullshit basically.
So has your career gone from like being fun and not, you know, this is going to sound like a little bit maybe negative, but like has it gone from being fun and kind of happy-go-lucky to now you're like, okay, I'm a professional player. I have to like take things seriously a little bit more so now and that kind of thing?
I think a little bit, but I think it's been good because we do need to take like this is a
Like
serious
if you want to
career.
take the next step in your career, you kind of have to shake off some of that Grayhound mannerism and move into a more professional environment.
You definitely have to professionalize it, and that's what Renegades has been so good at, is like professionalizing what was just like I don't know, us just being really, really silly on camera. And I think that's been really good for the like for I guess the team. Just mentality wise and stuff, like we're not as like it just yeah, I don't really know how to describe it other than just like professionalizing everything to do like everything around the team and kind of bringing in like everything that they've been able to bring in, like the resources that they have. It's kind of like just it's only positive for the team.
Right.
It just means like, you know, we don't have as much time. Like we're spending more time focused on the game than we are focused on like content and stuff, which is, you know, is what it is. The content was fun, and I definitely miss like I definitely want to make more of that kind of content because it is just like it's what I find funny, and I think like we were pretty good at it in my opinion. Like Will's editing was really good, and
Definitely.
the acting and everything was always entertaining.
I mean, the whole
at least.
culture of the team was kind of made from these sorts of videos and those sort of shit posts that you guys put on Twitter. But anyway, let's jump back into a bit more of like the results discussion. You know, we want to get a bit more serious, just like you are now with Renegades. You go to your first event as Renegades, ESL Pro League Season 10 Finals. Again, it's the same result. Again, the ESL Pro League curse. Oh, actually, technically, you guys did a little bit better this time because you did manage to beat Sharks in the lower bracket. But you face Astralis in the first round, which is always going to be rough. And then you go on to lose to the eventual winners, Mouse Sports, which is like, I guess, like, whatever. You know, it just seems like another one of those EPL events where things kind of haven't gone right for the roster.
Yeah. I think Mouse... Did we get a map off Mouse? I think it was 2-1.
From memory, yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, so I think we were like... Overall, we were a little disappointed we didn't beat them, but then when they won, we were kind of like, eh.
Yeah, like,
you know,
it is what it is. It's just
they,
another one of those EPL events.
Yeah, they were, and they are, and made like a really good team. And they are very difficult to take on. So that was kind of just a bit of a write-off tournament as well.
Yeah.
I think so. Before that tournament, we kind of had a discussion with Ollie as well, or like about Ollie about performance and stuff like that, and that was kind of coming to like a bit of a head at that tournament. So mentality-wise in the team, it wasn't like the best spot, I think.
Yeah. So this is where I was actually going to lead to next, because this is the time, like basically after this event in January this year, is when Dickstacy then leaves the roster or is removed from the roster. I'm not sure what the situation really was, but I just want to know, you know, like how did that sort of come about and how did the culture of the team kind of change now that he wasn't there anymore?
Well, we kind of, I think before the tournament, we kind of ran him, like gave a bit of a performance warning kind of thing. Like, so we have a policy of no one gets replaced because of like bad performance or anything like that. It's always like it has to be consistently, like there has to be warnings, there have to be notifications, stuff like that. Like just as we're professionalizing everything, that's kind of something we have to talk about. Like, you know, we need to make sure everyone is aware of like where they're going wrong, how they're going wrong, like what they need to do to fix what's going on, all that kind of stuff. Because it's not fair to just like, you know, someone has a bad event or like 2 bad events and you just bounce them out and just be like, yeah, you're gone. Like you're not, there needs to be official notice and stuff like that. So I think that was given before the event, and we kind of just, yeah, I don't know. It's all a bit of a, I don't know, bit of a haze, to be honest. Like, it wasn't that long ago, but it feels like a while ago. Feels like I've been playing with Jordan for forever now.
It's a lot of lots that's kind of happened since the start of this year, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I don't know, it just feels so long ago because, like, we're not doing events or anything. I don't know. I don't know what it is about it, but this year's just been so weird that kind of feels like it's gone on for a couple years already.
Yeah. So you replace him with Hatz. He comes into the roster, and then you go to Dreamhack Leipzig, which you place second in. And quite frankly, it was, I guess, relatively weak competition at that event compared to something like the Malmo event where you placed 7th to 8th. But obviously a pretty good result for you guys. And then you go into IEM Katowice, right? And so this is a big one for you. Obviously one of the biggest events in the world. Coranavirus, bam. And
Yeah.
then there's nothing going on, there's no one in the stadium or anything like that. And obviously you guys don't make the stadium stage, but like
Obviously.
obviously.
Obviously. You
What,
guys would
what,
never
what is it like for you? Did that really change anything? The coronavirus situation. Like as far as a player is concerned, it surely didn't change that much unless you made it to the stage, right?
No, I think it was all kind of all good for the tournament. I don't think it affected performance or anything like that, or anything. It was kind of just like like when we were walking around the place and just I don't know. It's just a weird vibe, kind of.
Well, what was it like being overseas at that time? Because back in January, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. It was kind of like, we'll have to wait and see. Like some things are starting to get shut down, but everyone's still able to travel. Obviously, you managed to make it back to Australia. So was there ever any concerns maybe that you were not going to be able to come back? Or were you thinking like, okay, well, we might actually be in a bit of trouble here?
Not as for Kato, but we were kind of just like I don't know. I personally was kind of like, okay, like when we got knocked out, I was like looking at flying back home early, basically, just like
Just in
because
case.
we had like 5 days or something. We had a long time, and I was kind of like, if it's only like, I mean, it would have been like, a grand, 1.5 grand or something. It would have been a lot of money, but it's like, is that worth it to not potentially get stuck here and also to, maintain team health and stuff, make sure no one gets sick with anything. In the end, it was just like it ended up we could only get a flight in like 2 days' time, and it just wasn't really that big of a difference. But I think I definitely stayed. I tried to stay inside, just in the prac room and stuff a bit more. Like not, we didn't really go exploring or go shopping or anything. Kind of just not too. I don't know. It felt a little bit like at that time it wasn't as bad as it was.
Yep.
Of now, obviously, or like even when things were leading up to now. And it was kind of just starting to get like information was coming out, and like there were a few cases here and there. And then as we got home, that was kind of when it took off. So we were quite lucky with the timing on that. I think like we got home and we were kind of like, shit, if we were there like, a month from now or like even a few weeks, like so different.
All right. So then you obviously come home and now sort of talking even a little bit more toward the present, right? Since February, you've really only played in the Rio Minor Qualifier and the Road to Rio, obviously, this past weekend. So you sort of mentioned to me that you guys were intending to be overseas for the majority of this time. And as a result, you haven't had anything to play in here. So obviously, this is like this whole coronavirus situation has, at least from an outsider's point of view, it seems to have like stunted what you guys have been able to do as a roster. Is that like a correct assumption, or did you not really have that much to play in regardless kind of thing?
No, we had a lot planned for so I think the first tournament was the Pro League in Malta. And that was kind of something like I personally was very keen for, go back to the homeland. But
Man from Malta.
Yep, going back. But yeah, I was pretty keen for that, and I think everyone was keen for just the Mediterranean like vibe. But and the tournament itself, obviously, and the boot camp before. So we had everything planned out. And then it kind of became a choice of like we were still allowed to fly over there, and there were still flights and everything. But it was kind of like, will this situation deteriorate further, or will we be allowed to get there and get home? And we kind of decided, and it was previous to being serious. Like it wasn't the situation wasn't as bad as like we couldn't have imagined that it got to now. And we kind of we're just like, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk. We'll just not go, because like the risk is we get over there, we get stuck there, or like someone gets sick, or like this pandemic becomes a huge thing, and we don't want to be stuck over this. Like we want to be home for that, basically, which ended up being a pretty sensible decision at the end of the day. And it was a pretty tough one, because we were like, we don't want to screw ESL over, because they're trying to plan this whole tournament, and having teams drop out is obviously bad for them. But at the same time, we got to stay safe.
Yeah.
So
I think in the end, if you would have gone and played in Pro League, would you have been able to make it back in time to play in Road to Rio ANZ, or would you have been then forced to compete in NA? Because that's what happened to 100 Thieves, right? Like theoretically, they're from the ANZ region still, so they, in an ideal world, would want to play against the ANZ competition, not the North American competition.
Well, I'm pretty sure are they playing in Road to Rio? Because they should.
Pretty much everyone's playing in Road to Rio. 100 Thieves is
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna say, because they were meant to requalify, but they obviously don't get that anymore, that luxury. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think we would have been able to get home, but we probably would have been quarantined. We would have been like the 2 weeks and everything. I honestly don't know. It would have just been a huge mess, and then just wasn't worth risking like any of that stuff. So we kind of just decided, we want to just be home for this whole thing. Like depending how long it could go for a year or whatever, like how long it goes for, we just want to be at home for that time.
Well, you are home, and you played in Road to Rio last weekend. So we're pretty much basically at present day now, and you've obviously won that. So, like, I don't really think there's too much to touch on there, maybe outside of the result against Order. So that's a pretty interesting one, I guess, given the fact that you kind of got a little bit dumpstered in the first map, and then certainly in the first half of the second map. But, now it kind of feels like you're doing to other teams what was done to you in 2017 and 2018, where you were the team that was, ahead, but you were the underdog, and then the better team came back and kind of slapped you a few rounds. Now you're the better team that's gotten behind early, and the underdog is getting ahead, but you've got that sort of experience and you're being able to come back into things. So is there like maybe a switch in kind of mentality as a roster now where you kind of consider yourselves that sort of upper echelon kind of a team?
Yeah, I think we maybe have like a slight problem of just like those 2 games, we just weren't in it until there was a risk that we actually lose the series. And that's like at that half, that's kind of when everyone was just like woke up basically. Like the alarm goes off and you're like, okay, like we're now at a point where like we've played ourselves into a situation where we can be like knock on first. And that's like because we haven't knock on first in a long time in terms of domestic competition. And I think it's a huge advantage that we have that like we know that we're always like that we're better than, like, I don't want to sound super disrespectful to all to the teams in Oz, but like we in our heads it's like we're better than these teams, and like we can always beat these teams, and that's what our like that's how we come back in games like that, is that we have the confidence and like the knowledge that like never really feels like we're out of those games at all. And like if there's a threat that we're going to lose, we kind of switch on, which is again like pretty bad that we aren't switched on the whole time. But it just, I don't know, it just feels so different sometimes. Like you just have a half which is so bad like that, and then or like again like train was like a complete write off. Like we were just like everyone, I don't know, it was like our fundamentals were really bad on that map, and that's something that we rely so heavily on. And then you go into Inferno and the same thing's happening on T side. We're losing rounds, or like we're just losing up picks early in the game, early in the half. Sorry, early in the rounds.
Yeah, I think it was something like 14 out of the 15 rounds. The first pick was the Way of Order. I think it was a stat that I talked about on the broadcast.
Probably. We were just like people were dying at Banana. I was dying in apps. Like everyone was just dying everywhere. And then like first up, and then so hard to win those rounds. And that's something that we're usually dealing in the opposite of that, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically after that half, we were kind of just like,
let's win.
I think it was Mytho was just like, guys, like you're never out of this. You just need a good mindset, and you're all good. And Chris was like, yeah, we've done it before. Let's do it again. And we kind of just,
This is the thing for me, like when I watch your games, and it's not just your games, but I mean games in that same kind of a context where it's a favorite against an underdog. The underdog is winning. I'm always sort of saying, and I'm always thinking as well, I'm like, this is not a match that's over really until 16's on the board. And that was the mentality that I had, even going into the second half of Inferno. Like I was starting to come around. I was starting to go, you know what, actually maybe Order might 2-0 this, but I'm not sold until it's a 16 on the board. And is that the same sort of thing that's kind of happening in your group?
Yeah, I think we're always the same. Like unless we've lost the game, it's not over. Especially like maybe, if I'm versing like when we versus Astralis and we were down like, I don't know, 10-3 or something on their T side. We're just like, okay, this one's going to be a struggle. And that's like, I think it's a lot harder to have confidence in those games. But against domestic teams who like we know in the past we've had the same situation but just flipped, like with 0-0 and we'll win 12 rounds on CT side, right? Like we know that we can just do it, so it just doesn't matter like that we had a like, it doesn't matter like that we're underperforming or that they're playing well or whatever it is. It just like we just know that whatever the case is, we can easily just still win the round or still win the game. Sorry.
Well, that's basically it. Like we've caught up to present day. So all the retrospective is done and dusted. I do have a few more bonus questions though for you, Malta, before we go. These are some of the ones that I couldn't really find a way to integrate into the discussion as a whole, and I just sort of thought were maybe a bit interesting for people. So, first one is, how's your role as a player actually changed throughout the years? You know, because I imagine that when you were playing, for example, all the way back on maybe even Aftermind, you might not have even considered roles so much as what you do now. So like what's the progression of Malta's role and Malta's career been like as a player?
Been in the recent years been a little bit of a mess, just because with players we bring in and just like game styles we're trying to play, like I swap around a lot. Even now, like I've always been an anchor player on CT side, and I'm kind of been playing some more rotator roles now, which I always was back like on Aftermind and stuff. I was playing rotator roles, because I like to be really active in rounds and just kind of like move around and try and like be there for my anchor players, kind of. But yeah, recently it's been so back on Aftermind. I think I was like a lurker, and then like joining these guys, I went into like more of an entry role, and then now I'm kind of lurking again. It's kind of just we swap up a bit because like usually I think I've definitely been performing worse in these roles than I would say in the roles when I was entering and more with the pack. Like I think that's probably more my strength, but we kind of like don't have a player who wants to who can play this role. Apart, basically, Chris is like such a good lurker, but he like to have the in-game leader lurking makes calling in the pack difficult, and no one was really picking up the slack of that.
Yep.
And that's more important than having like a lurker who can impact as much as Chris can. So we kind of we just move everyone around. And yeah, it was kind of like a recent change. So like it takes me time to get comfortable in this role and him time getting comfortable being in the pack. But it's just something we have to work on.
Yeah.
Roles, I don't know. Roles, they just, you got to fit in whatever role the team needs, and that changes throughout the year. Like, at one point you can be weak because of a certain thing, and that means like, a role change can just fix that for now kind of thing. I don't know. It's hard, but it changes. I think that's a quality of being a good player or being a top player, is like being able to mesh into that role and understand what your role in the round still like what it is, because it changes a lot, and it's hard to get out one mentality and go into the other, but that's what you have to do.
All right, out of the game then, you've obviously been one of the top players in the ANZ region. Has there ever been a offer, like since you've joined Grayhound, that you've kind of seriously considered that might pull you away from Grayhound? And it obviously doesn't have to be like an international offer or anything like that, but any kind of offer as a player?
No, not really. I think players, so if you're looking from an overseas perspective, you're only going to look for the star players in teams from in regions like Australia.
Right.
Because I think the roles that I play, a lot of people can like, I don't really know, like the star players like are like someone like Chris, right? Like he's going to be someone who, if you pick him up, he'll have a straight impact in the round.
Yep.
And I don't know. I like, not that I don't feel the same about myself, but it's just like it's more visual, I guess, when you look at it. When you look at like him in a game, you'll see like the 3Ks and stuff like that.
You see the stats, yeah, and yeah. I know
So,
what
like,
you mean. It's the same thing that we talk about on the broadcast as well. It's like when I say something like Malta is an undervalued player, right? It's like you as an individual, and many people that sort of seem to fill a similar role to you, don't get those accolades because you don't have those big games as often, or you don't have those big moments. And even when you do, it's like maybe not as flashy as another player or something like that. So maybe that's part of the reason.
I think a lot of it as well, like, so I think the games when I had the best, like when I was playing my best, was when I was entering, I would say.
Right.
And it's kind of like games like that can be super inconsistent, because there can be games where like against like Liquid or something, right? Like I just get entries, or like I get trades or something like that. Like, so usually like what'll happen is our entry is like a little bit interchangeable. Like someone will do it somewhere and someone will do it somewhere else, and then it's kind of like the other person's job to trade that person. And I think in some games it just works out like, I'll get the trade frag, so I'll get the stats, or I'll get traded and then I won't get the stats. And that's kind of like you still have impact in the round, but you're not having like measurable impact in terms of or statistical impact, I guess. But yeah, I just don't think players come to I don't think orgs really come to Oz very often, or even come to our team very often to look for players.
It's interesting because I had a bit of a chat with Gomez on one of my other shows, and he was saying, you know, like he would look at Renegades right now as, you know, a possible kind of, not like he didn't say a feeder team, but the implication was that like he looked at all the individuals on your roster and thought that you were all good players that would be considered to get pulled into 100 Thieves if they would have had to have made a change, you know, like basically now. The question was like, if you had to choose a player in the Oz region, like who would it be? And it was like, well, anyone on Renegades. So I don't know that what you're saying is incorrect, because I think 100 Thieves is probably an outside case where they are looking for specifically Australian players. But I don't think that the region as a whole generally is scouted as much as some of the other regions are.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think, it's a good thing, I think, because if we had people come in and take all our top, like, if they, like, you know, say, like, Chris and Josh go somewhere, then the Australian region's just pushed back so far in terms of just the development that I feel like as Grayhound, we've brought a lot of kind of, like, success and kind of, like, eyes to the Australian, or to the Oceanic region, sorry.
Definitely.
And that's something I quite like. I'm silently proud of, is that we've kind of, I feel like, put us a little bit, like, obviously the Vox Seminole guys did it initially, and then they moved to America, and they're kind of like that, like they're like, okay, now if an Australian team moved to America, they can do this, they can be successful, and then now we're kind of like, we can do it from Oz, and that's kind of what that's like the mission we're trying to push. But I don't think we're like at the end yet, but I think we made good progress, and definitely proud of it.
Definitely. Maybe a bit more of a comical kind of question then here. Who is the worst housemate in the Grayhound household, or has been? It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that's still there.
Look, there's so many answers. There's just so many people.
Malta. The answer is Malta.
The answer is definitely not me. I can give specific answers for specific cases. So, Erk was bad because he would leave cutlery and like plates and stuff in the sink, but then he was also good because he would eventually go and clean it up. Like, he would leave it and it would be there for like 3 days, but then you'd be like, hey Erk, is that your stuff in the sink? And he'd be like, oh yeah, and you go do it. So like, bad in that he didn't address himself, but good in that, like, if you prompted him, he'd go do it. So that's okay. Simon is just like, I don't know, he'll just spill like Migarang oil on the floor and be like, yeah, it's all right, it'll go in my sock later. And then like, and yeah, not care. And then, and Ollie would just like not clean stuff up. And then you'd be like, can you clean it up? And he'd be like, yeah, what's wrong with that? It's just a pan. Why don't you wash it up? And then try and troll me about it. So they all have their little, apart from Josh is a great housemate. Will, Gary, great housemate. Chris, good housemate. He cleans stuff. So, yeah, only those 3 I can complain about.
All right, call them out by names. I like it. All right, this is like the last one. This is the magnum opus of the whole video. This is the last question, but it's a bit of a extended one, and you, I think, don't know that this is coming. So, the idea is you have to make a team of players from the ANZ region that you're not currently competing with. So it can't be anyone that's on Renegades right now. You have to be in the team. So who's
like 100 Thieves?
What? No, they're not. Players? They're not competing in that ANZ region, mate. Are you listening to the rules?
All right.
Who's on your team?
That's tough because I only know people I've played with before. Basically, like, I know I put Alistair in there because I know, like, I quite like him as a person, and I know that that we get along, and I think that's like the most important thing in a team is like you don't have people you don't like. Honestly, I just haven't played with anyone apart from that. So me and Alistair 2v5. No, I don't know. If I had to pick an IGL, probably Gyra, because he's the only one that I really know. Is there anyone else that's doing IGLing?
Blitz, I think, is IGLing for Avant, or APOC would be a potential option if we're like looking at top 4 teams right now.
I'd probably pick Jara personally, just because I've spoken to him a few times, and he's been like, he just seems like a really chill, good dude, and I feel like that's a very important thing to have in an IGL. He's just someone who's just super calm. So that kind of seems like who he is.
What about APOC Dud from Chiefs? He's the IGL, I think, for them as well.
Yeah,
it's another option.
He'd be my Orpa if I didn't like Ali so much. But
well, you could put Ali on the rifle. He's pretty good at the rifle, right?
Good. I do like APOC Dud. I think he's a really he just seems like he has some games where IGLing probably like
limits
focusing
him.
Too much on that. Yeah. I think he's a really like sensible player, and I like that a lot about him. Like he seems like he makes good decisions.
True.
But I don't know.
So we got Jira, Ali, and Malta.
Me, obviously. Yeah. I'll be star player entry AWP and
Sounds good.
IGL.
Sounds good.
Oh man, I don't know. Hey, I just don't know. I don't play enough pugs with like FPL and stuff with these guys. So I don't really know like a lot of them individually. So I can't really say. But I mean, the order guys seem like pretty impactful most of the time. So maybe I'll coach, and then I'll just take order.
Okay.
Because I Ricky, Justillo, and Val, and I'll coach. Sorry, Tyler. Tyler can coach.
What a dog.
No, well,
taking a man's job. You've left his team. You basically cucked his team, and then you've taken his job. Like, what more do you want to do to the poor guy?
Yeah. No, sorry. Okay, well, I'll pick Avant. All right. I'll coach Avant.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Happy. Okay.
Maybe that's something that we'll see from you down the track, I guess. That or casting.
Yeah. But I think both those rosters pretty. I don't think I'd change much about them in the current landscape with my knowledge that I have. Both seem like pretty sensible, well put together rosters. So.
All right. Well, that's the end of the video then. Do you have any shout outs that you want to make or anything you want to say?
No, just thanks for doing all the research into my very bland history of Australian CS.
Took a while, actually.
Did a lot of work on that because I saw the document and had a lot of stuff written in. So appreciate that. And also, I guess, Renegades for supporting me during this this tough COVID time. They're looking after us very well. And we're, very lucky to have support like that.
Awesome. And people can follow you at Malta_CS on the Twitter sphere.
People can follow Jordan at Elfish Guy.
That's right.
On Twitter.
And I'd very much appreciate a sub and a like on the YouTube channel as well. But that's it. Thanks for watching. And I guess let us know if there's any players that you'd be interested in hearing from, because Malta has been, I guess, the guinea pig in the in retrospect videos.